The courtroom doors swing open, and the bailiff's voice cuts through the thick silence like a blade through fabric. All rise for the Honorable Judge Lauren Lake, presiding over the Superior Court of Fulton County, Georgia. The judge enters with measured steps, her robe flowing behind her, her expression already weighted with the gravity of what she knows is about to unfold. She takes her seat at the bench, adjusts her microphone, and surveys the two people standing before her with their lawyers at their sides. On the left stands Marcus Thompson, 34 years old, wearing his service dress uniform with medals pinned neatly across his chest. His jaw clenched so tight you can see the muscles working beneath his skin. His eyes are red, rimmed but dry, as if he's cried so much already that there's nothing left. On the right stands his wife, Chantal Thompson, 29 years old, dressed conservatively in a navy dress, her hands trembling as she clutches a tissue, her eyes darting between her husband and the judge as if searching for mercy in either face. Between them, though not physically present in the courtroom, hangs the shadow of a 2-year-old child named Isaiah, a little boy with his mother's eyes and a smile that used to light up Marcus's whole world until doubt crept in like poison. The judge opens the file before her, scanning the pages with a furrowed brow, then looks up at the couple with an expression that somehow manages to combine compassion and sternness in equal measure. She clears her throat and begins to speak, her voice resonating through every corner of the room. This is the case of Thompson versus Thompson, and we are here today to determine the paternity of young Isaiah Marcus Thompson, born on March 15th, 2 years ago, while his alleged father was serving his country thousands of miles away in the unforgiving deserts of Afghanistan. Judge Lake leans forward slightly, her eyes settling on Marcus first, taking in every detail of his rigid posture and haunted expression. Mr. Thompson, you've served 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan. You've been awarded the Purple Heart for injuries sustained in combat, and you've given years of your life to protecting this nation and the freedoms we all enjoy. You married your high school sweetheart Chantal 5 years ago, and by all accounts your marriage was strong until you deployed for your second tour in late 2021. You left your wife behind in their small apartment in Atlanta, promising to video call whenever possible, writing letters when the internet was down, counting down the days until you could hold her again. But when you returned home 14 months later, you came back to a wife who was 7 months pregnant with a child she claimed was conceived during your brief leave 6 months into your deployment. At first, you were overjoyed, planning the nursery, buying baby clothes, dreaming of being a father. But then you started doing the math, looking at your leave dates, looking at when Chantal said the baby was due, and the numbers didn't quite line up the way they should. You started noticing little things, the way Chantal would change the subject when you asked about her pregnancy, the way she'd deleted text messages from someone named Deshawn from her phone, the way she'd become defensive and angry whenever you expressed even the slightest doubt. And then Isaiah was born, and you looked into his tiny face, and you wanted so desperately to see yourself reflected back. But instead you saw features that didn't quite match, a skin tone that seemed different, questions that grew louder and louder until they drowned out everything else. For 2 years you've raised this child, changing diapers and walking the floors at night, reading bedtime stories and teaching him to say Dada, all while this terrible uncertainty ate away at your soul. And now you're here, standing in this courtroom, asking for a DNA test because you need to know the truth, because you can't keep living in this limbo between love and betrayal. Is that correct, Mr. Thompson? Marcus nods sharply, his voice rough when he finally speaks, cracking slightly on certain words as emotion threatens to overwhelm his military composure. Yes, Your Honor, that's correct. I love my son, or at least I love the boy I've been calling my son for the past 2 years. I've been there for every moment, every milestone, every fever in the middle of the night. I've sacrificed sleep and money and my own mental health to be the best father I could possibly be. But I need to know if he's actually mine, Because if Chantal cheated on me while I was overseas getting shot at and watching my brothers in arms die in the desert, then everything I thought I knew about my marriage and my family has been a lie. I spent 14 months in that hellhole, thinking about coming home to my wife, dreaming about holding her, believing that she was waiting for me faithfully, just like I was being faithful to her. And then I come home and she's pregnant, and the timeline doesn't make sense, and she won't give me straight answers, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. I've been diagnosed with PTSD from my time in Afghanistan, and this situation has made it 10 times worse. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I have panic attacks in the middle of the night because I don't know if my whole life is built on a foundation of lies. I just need the truth, Your Honor, whatever it is, because at least then I can figure out what to do next. His voice breaks completely on those last words, and he has to take a moment to compose himself, his hand coming up to wipe at his eyes before he forces himself back into military bearing, shoulders squared and jaw set. Judge Lake's expression softens slightly as she watches Marcus struggle to maintain his composure. Then she turns her attention to Chantal, whose tears are flowing freely now, streaming down her cheeks and dripping onto the tissue she's twisting between her hands. Mrs. Thompson, you're here today defending yourself against your husband's accusations of infidelity and his questions about Isaiah's paternity. You maintain that you were faithful to Marcus during his deployment, that Isaiah was conceived during his leave in May of 2020, 2, and that the dates match up perfectly with the baby's birth in March of 2023. You say that Marcus is suffering from trauma and paranoia because of his military service, that his PTSD has made him suspicious and distrustful, and that his doubts about Isaiah's paternity are breaking your heart and destroying your family. You claim that you've never been unfaithful, that you don't even know anyone named Deshawn despite the text messages Marcus says he found, and that you're willing to take a DNA test to prove once and for all that Isaiah is Marcus's biological son. You say that this accusation has devastated you, that you've stood by Marcus through 2 deployments and supported him through his struggles with PTSD, and that you can't believe he would doubt you and your child after everything you've been through together. But there are some questions that need to be answered, Mrs. Thompson, because the evidence your husband has presented suggests that there may be more to this story than what you're telling us. So I'm going to ask you directly, right here in this courtroom with your husband standing 5 feet away from you, and with the truth hanging in the balance, did you have sexual relations with another man while your husband was deployed in Afghanistan? And before you answer, I want you to understand that lying in this courtroom has consequences, not just legal consequences, but moral ones, and that your son deserves to know the truth about where he came from and who his father really is. Chantal's shoulders shake as she tries to speak, her voice coming out in broken sobs that make her words almost unintelligible at first. Your Honor, I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to hurt Marcus. I love my husband more than anything in this world. When he left for his 2nd deployment, I was so scared, so lonely, so terrified that he wouldn't come back, that I'd get that knock on the door telling me he was dead. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't function. I was having panic attacks every time I saw a military vehicle drive down our street. And there was this guy, Deshawn, who lived in our apartment complex, and he was nice to me. He would check on me, make sure I was okay, help me carry groceries, fix things around the apartment when they broke. It started out innocent, just friendly neighbors looking out for each other, but then it became more than that. We started talking more, spending more time together, and I was so starved for human connection and comfort that I let my guard down. I let him in when I should have kept my distance. And yes, Your Honor, there was one night, just one night, when Marcus had been gone for 8 months and I hadn't heard from him in 2 weeks because his unit, it was in a dangerous area with no communication, and I thought he might be dead, and I was so scared and lonely and desperate that I made Terrible mistake. I slept with Deshawn one time, just one time, and I regretted it immediately. I cut off all contact with him. I blocked his number. I avoided him completely, and I prayed that Marcus would never have to know about the worst mistake of my life. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I counted back the dates. And I convinced myself that the baby had to be Marcus's because I couldn't bear to face the alternative. I wanted so badly for it to be Marcus's baby that I made myself believe it. And when Isaiah was born, I looked for every possible sign that Marcus was his father, every little feature that might match, every reason to believe that my one terrible mistake hadn't resulted in a pregnancy. The courtroom seems to freeze in that moment, the weight of Chantal's confession hanging in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating and impossible to escape. Marcus staggers slightly, his hand reaching out to grip the table beside him as if his legs might give out beneath him. His face cycles through expressions of shock and pain and rage and grief all in the span of a few seconds. And when he finally speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper, but somehow carries to every corner of the silent room. You cheated on me while I was in Afghanistan, while I was fighting for our country, while I was putting my life on the line every single day. You slept with another man in our home, in our bed, and then you lied to me about it for over 2 years. You let me believe that Isaiah was my son. You let me bond with him, love him, pour everything I had into being his father, all while knowing that he might not even be mine. How could you do that to me, Chantal? How could you look me in the eye every single day and lie to me? How could you let me suffer through this doubt and this pain when you knew the whole time that you'd cheated? I defended you to my family when they said the timeline seemed off. I defended you to my friends when they suggested you might have been unfaithful. I told everyone that you would never betray me like that our love was too strong, that you were waiting for me just like I was waiting for you. And all along you were lying. Every single day you were lying, and now I don't even know who you are anymore. I don't know if I ever really knew you at all. His voice cracks completely, and he turns away from her, his broad shoulders shaking as he tries to hold back the sob that's fighting to break free from his chest. Judge Lake allows a moment of heavy silence to settle over the courtroom, giving both parties a chance to absorb the full impact of what has just been revealed before she speaks again, her voice firm but not unkind. Mrs. Thompson, I appreciate that you finally told the truth, even though it took standing in a courtroom under oath to get that truth out of you. I appreciate that you've admitted to your infidelity and acknowledged the pain you've caused your husband. But I need you to understand something very clearly. When you made the decision to be intimate with another man while your husband was deployed, you weren't just betraying your marriage vows. You were betraying the trust of a man who was quite literally putting his life on the line for his country. You took advantage of his absence, his vulnerability, his trust in you, and you engaged in behavior that has now called into question the paternity of the child he's been raising as his son for 2 years. And then, instead of being honest with him when he came home, instead of giving him the truth and letting him make informed decisions about his own life and his own future, you lied to him for over 2 years. You let him bond with a child who might not be biologically his. You let him spend his money supporting a family that might not actually be his family. You let him suffer through doubt and guilt and paranoia, allowing him to think that maybe his PTSD was making him see things that weren't there, when all along you knew the truth and you just refused to tell it. That's not just infidelity, Mrs. Thompson. That's sustained deception of the worst kind. Now, I'm not here to judge your marriage or tell you whether you should stay together or get divorced, but I am here to determine the paternity of this child, and we need to get that DNA test done so that everyone can finally know the truth. Bailiff, please bring in young Isaiah so we can proceed with the paternity test and put an end to this uncertainty once and for all. The courtroom door opens and a social worker enters carrying a beautiful little boy with bright, curious eyes and a head full of dark curls. Isaiah is wearing tiny jeans and a blue shirt with a dinosaur on it, and he's clutching a stuffed bear that's nearly as big as he is. When he sees Chantal, he reaches for her immediately, calling out Mama in a sweet high voice that makes Chantal sob even harder. But then Isaiah sees Marcus, and his whole face lights up with pure joy, and he reaches for him too, calling Dada Dada with such excitement and love that it's physically painful to witness. Marcus's face crumples as he looks at the little boy he's been raising, the child he's loved and cared for and bonded with for 2 years, and he reaches out instinctively to take Isaiah into his arms, even though he doesn't know if this child is biologically his or not. Isaiah wraps his small arms around Marcus's neck and presses his face against his shoulder, completely trusting and completely innocent of all the pain and drama surrounding his very existence. The social worker approaches with the DNA testing kit, and Judge Lake explains that they'll be swabbing both Marcus and Isaiah to determine biological paternity, and that the results will be available shortly. Marcus holds Isaiah steady while the swab is taken from inside the little boy's cheek, and Isaiah squirms and whimpers but doesn't cry, trusting his Dada to keep him safe. Then Marcus's cheek is swabbed, and the samples are sealed and labeled and handed off to the lab technician, who's been standing by. The social worker takes Isaiah back, and the little boy protests loudly, reaching back toward Marcus and Chantal, not understanding why he can't stay with his parents. The courtroom door closes behind them, and once again the adults are left alone with the consequences of their actions, and the terrible waiting that comes before truth is finally revealed. Judge Lake tells them that the lab will rush the results, and they should have an answer within the hour, and that they can wait in separate conference rooms until they're called back into the courtroom. Marcus and Chantal are led away in different directions, not looking at each other, the distance between them now measured in more than just physical space. An hour passes slowly, each minute stretching out like an eternity for everyone involved. In his conference room, Marcus sits with his head in his hands, trying to prepare himself for whatever answer is coming, trying to figure out what he'll do if Isaiah isn't his biological son, trying to reconcile the love he feels for that little boy with the betrayal and pain he feels toward his wife. In her conference room, Chantal paces back and forth, praying silently, hoping against hope that the DNA test will come back showing Marcus is the father, that her one terrible mistake didn't result in a pregnancy, that she won't have to watch her marriage and her family completely fall apart. And then finally the bailiff comes to collect them both, telling them the results are in, and Judge Lake is ready to reconvene. They walk back into the courtroom from different doors, taking their positions at their respective tables, not looking at each other, barely breathing as they wait for the judge to return to the bench. Judge Lake enters carrying a sealed envelope, her expression carefully neutral, giving away nothing about what those results might say. She takes her seat, adjusts her microphone, and looks out at the two people whose entire futures hang on the contents of that envelope. The courtroom is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Chantal is openly weeping, her hands pressed against her mouth as if she could somehow hold back the fear and dread that's threatening to swallow her whole. Marcus stands at rigid attention, every muscle in his body tense, his jaw working as he grinds his teeth together, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Judge Lake picks up the envelope and holds it for a moment, letting the weight of this moment settle over everyone present. Then she breaks the seal and pulls out the paper inside, her eyes scanning the results before she looks up at the couple standing before her. "Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, I have the results of the DNA test that was performed on you and young Isaiah Marcus Thompson. These results will determine the biological paternity of this child and will give you the answers you've been seeking. Are you both ready to hear these results?" Marcus nods curtly, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. "Yes, Your Honor, I'm ready. Whatever the results say, I'm ready to hear them. I need to know the truth." Chantal can barely get the words out through her tears, but she manages to whisper yes, her whole body trembling as she waits for the judge to speak. Judge Lake looks down at the paper in her hands one more time, then looks up at Marcus with an expression that's impossible to read. Mr. Thompson, according to the DNA test results performed by our certified laboratory, you are not the biological father of Isaiah Marcus Thompson. The results show 0% probability of paternity. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, but the child you've been raising for the past 2 years is not your biological son. The courtroom erupts in gasps and murmurs, and Marcus actually stumbles backward as if he's been physically struck, his hand coming up to clutch at his chest as if he's having a heart attack. Chantal collapses into her chair, her face buried in her hands, her whole body shaking with the force of her sobs. The bailiff moves forward slightly, ready to assist if needed, but Marcus holds up a hand to stop him, forcing himself to stand upright, to maintain some semblance of dignity even as his world crumbles around him. The judge allows a moment for the shock to settle, then continues speaking, her voice gentle but firm. Mr. Thompson, I know this is devastating news, and I cannot imagine the pain you're feeling right now. You served your country with honor. You came home expecting to start a family with your wife, and instead you discovered that she had been unfaithful, and that the child you've been bonding with for 2 years is not biologically yours. This is a betrayal of the worst kind, and you have every right to feel angry and hurt and devastated. No one would blame you for walking away from this situation and never looking back. But I need to ask you something, Mr. Thompson, and I need you to really think about your answer before you give it to me. That little boy in there, Isaiah, he knows you as his father. For 2 years, you've been the only father he's ever known. You've changed his diapers and fed him bottles and rocked him to sleep and taught him his first words. You've been there for every scraped knee and every bedtime story and every moment of his young life. So my question to you is this: regardless of biology, regardless of DNA, regardless of the betrayal you've experienced, do you love that child? Marcus is silent for a long moment, his throat working as he tries to swallow past the lump of emotion lodged there, tears streaming down his face now without any attempt to hide them or wipe them away. When he finally speaks, his voice is rough and broken, but absolutely certain. Yes, Your Honor, I love him. God help me, I love that little boy more than I ever thought it was possible to love another human being. When I came home from Afghanistan, I was broken, damaged, haunted by things I'd seen and done, and that baby saved my life. Taking care of him gave me purpose, gave me a reason to get up every morning and keep fighting even when I wanted to give up. Hearing him call me Dada is the best sound I've ever heard in my entire life. Watching him learn to walk and talk and discover the world has been the greatest privilege I've ever experienced. I love him. I love him so much it physically hurts, but I don't know if I can stay, Your Honor. I don't know if I can look at him every day and not see Chantal's betrayal reflected back at me. I don't know if I can raise another man's child knowing that man is out there somewhere while I'm the one changing diapers and paying bills and dealing with tantrums. I don't know if I'm strong enough to separate my love for Isaiah from my pain over what Chantal did to me. I want to be that strong. I wish I was that strong, but I'm not sure if I am. His voice breaks completely and he has to stop talking, his whole body shaking as he fights to maintain control. Chantal is sobbing so hard she can barely breathe, her face red and blotchy, her hands clutching at the edge of the table as if it's the only thing keeping her upright. Your Honor, please, please don't let him leave us. I know I don't deserve his forgiveness. I know I destroyed everything good we had together, but Isaiah needs his father. He needs Marcus. He doesn't know any other father. Please, Marcus, please don't abandon our son. I know he's not biologically yours, but you're still his father in every way that matters. Please don't let my mistake destroy Isaiah's whole life. She's begging now, her voice raw and desperate, and it's painful to watch. Judge Lake holds up a hand to silence them both. her expression serious and weighted with the gravity of the situation unfolding before her. Let me tell you both something, and I need you to listen carefully because what I'm about to say could determine the course of all of your lives going forward. Mr. Thompson, you are absolutely right to be angry. You are absolutely right to feel betrayed and hurt and devastated by what your wife did to you. She made a terrible choice, a selfish choice, and she compounded that choice by lying to you for over 2 years. She robbed you of the opportunity to make informed decisions about your own life and your own future. She let you bond with a child under false pretenses, and that is unforgivable in many ways. You would be completely justified in walking away from this marriage and never looking back. But here's what I need you to understand. Isaiah didn't choose any of this. Isaiah didn't ask to be born under these circumstances. Isaiah didn't betray you or lie to you or hurt you. Isaiah is an innocent child who loves you with everything in his pure little heart. And if you walk away from him now, you will be breaking that child's heart in ways that will affect him for the rest of his life. Now, I'm not telling you what to do, Mr. Thompson, because ultimately this decision is yours and yours alone. But I am telling you that fatherhood isn't just about biology. Fatherhood is about showing up every single day and choosing to love that child and put their needs before your own. It's about being present and consistent and reliable even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when you don't think you can take one more step forward. There are biological fathers out there who contributed nothing more than DNA and then disappeared, leaving their children to grow up without them. And there are non-biological fathers out there who have stepped up and loved children as their own, children who were born from previous relationships or adopted or conceived under complicated circumstances. And those fathers are just as real and just as important as any biological father could ever be. You've been Isaiah's father for 2 years. You've earned that title through your actions and your love and your dedication. Biology is just science, Mr. Thompson. Love is what makes a family. So the question isn't whether Isaiah is biologically yours. The question is whether you're going to let Chantal's betrayal destroy your relationship with a child you claim to love, or whether you're going to be strong enough and brave enough to separate your feelings about your wife from your feelings about your son. Because right now, in this moment, you have to make a choice that will echo through the rest of that little boy's life. The silence that follows Judge Lake's words is deafening, broken only by Chantal's continued sobbing and the sound of Marcus's ragged breathing as he struggles with the most difficult decision of his entire life. He stands there for what feels like hours but is probably only a few minutes, his jaw working, his fists clenching and unclenching at his sides, his eyes squeezed shut as he battles with himself internally. Finally, he opens his eyes and looks directly at Judge Lake, his voice steady despite the tears still streaming down his face. Your Honor, I need time. I need time to process this information and figure out what I'm going to do. I can't make a decision this big while I'm standing here in this courtroom with my emotions all over the place. But I can tell you this much. I'm not going to abandon Isaiah completely. I'm not going to just disappear from his life overnight. That little boy deserves better than that, and honestly, I don't think I could survive walking away from him even if I wanted to. But my marriage to Chantal is over. I can't stay married to someone who betrayed me like this, someone who lied to me for over 2 years, someone who destroyed my trust so completely that I don't think it can ever be repaired. I'm going to file for divorce, and I'm going to seek some kind of custody arrangement for Isaiah, because regardless of biology, he's been my son for 2 years, and I want to maintain a relationship with him. But I don't know what that's going to look like yet. I don't know if I can handle being a full-time father to another man's child. I don't know how I'm going to explain this to my family or to Isaiah when he's old enough to understand. I just know that I need time to heal and time to think and time to figure out what kind of future I can build from the wreckage of everything I thought my life was going to be. Judge Lake nods slowly, her expression understanding but still serious. Mr. Thompson, I think that's a reasonable response given the circumstances. You need time to process this trauma and figure out what you're capable of moving forward. And I want to commend you for not making a rash decision in anger, for thinking about Isaiah's well-being even in the midst of your own pain. That shows character, Mr. Thompson. That shows strength. I'm going to order that you and Mrs. Thompson undergo mediation to work out the details of your divorce and to establish a custody arrangement for Isaiah that serves his best interests while also acknowledging your emotional needs. I'm also going to strongly recommend that all three of you, you and Mrs. Thompson, and eventually Isaiah when he's old enough, engage in family counseling to help navigate this very difficult situation. And Mr. Thompson, I'm going to recommend that you continue your treatment for PTSD because what you've experienced both overseas and in this marriage is traumatic, and you deserve support in dealing with that trauma. Then she turns to Chantal, her expression hardening slightly. Mrs. Thompson, you need to understand the full weight of what you've done. You didn't just cheat on your husband. You created a situation where a combat veteran with PTSD was forced to question his own sanity, to doubt his own memories and perceptions, to live in agonizing uncertainty for over 2 years. You robbed him of the opportunity to make informed choices about his life. You risked his mental health, his emotional well-being, and his relationship with a child he loves deeply. And you need to take full responsibility for that. No excuses, no justifications, no blaming your loneliness or your fear. You made choices, and those choices have consequences, and now you have to live with those consequences. You also need to locate Isaiah's biological father and inform him that he has a child, because that man has rights and responsibilities regarding his son, and Isaiah has the right to know where he comes from. This isn't going to be easy for you, Mrs. Thompson, and frankly, you don't deserve easy, but you do need to step up now and start making better choices, starting with being completely honest with everyone involved about what happened and why. Do you understand me? Chantal nods miserably, her voice barely audible through her tears. Yes, Your Honor, I understand. I know I destroyed everything. I know I hurt the man I love more than anything. I know I created this nightmare, and I have no one to blame but myself. I just hope that someday, somehow, Marcus might be able to forgive me, not for my sake, but for Isaiah's sake, so that Isaiah can have some kind of relationship with the only father he's ever known. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right, or at least as right as it can be given what I've done. I'll go to counseling. I'll be honest with Deshawn about Isaiah. I'll cooperate with the divorce and custody proceedings. I'll do anything and everything that's asked of me. I just can't lose my son completely. Please, Your Honor, please make sure that whatever arrangements are made, Isaiah comes first. He's the innocent one in all of this, and he deserves to have 2 parents who love him even if those parents can't be together anymore. Judge Lake studies Chantal for a long moment, then nods slowly. I'm going to hold you to that, Mrs. Thompson. I'm going to hold you accountable for following through on your commitments and doing what's best for Isaiah regardless of how difficult or uncomfortable it might be for you. And if I find out that you've lied again, that you've withheld information, that you've put your own comfort ahead of your son's well-being, I will not hesitate to modify custody arrangements accordingly. Do I make myself clear? Chantal nods frantically. Yes, Your Honor, perfectly clear. Thank you, Your Honor. And Judge Lake turns back to Marcus one final time. Mr. Thompson, I want you to know that this court recognizes your sacrifice both as a soldier and as a father. I want you to know that your feelings are valid and your pain is real, and you have every right to take whatever time you need to heal. But I also want you to remember that little boy who lights up when he sees you, who calls you Dada, who trusts you completely and loves you unconditionally. Whatever you decide about your future, please don't forget that love is real even if the circumstances that created it were built on lies. Sometimes the most honorable thing a man can do is choose love even when he has every reason to choose anger. Court is adjourned. The gavel comes down with a sharp crack that echoes through the courtroom, and just like that the session is over, but the real work of healing and rebuilding and figuring out what comes next is only just beginning.